Naledi Malefe scrubbed the marble counter for the third time that morning. Her hands moved in circles, steady and practiced. The kitchen gleamed already, but she needed to look busy. That was the trick to being invisible. Stay moving. Stay quiet. Disappear into the walls. "Mama, I finished the book," Luazi whispered from under the breakfast table. Naledi's heart jumped. She knelt quickly and found her 7-year-old son tucked between the chair legs, a thick book about Korean history spread across his lap. "Luazi, baby, I told you to stay in our room when Mr. Yoon is home. But he left already. I heard the car. Smart boy. Too smart sometimes." Naledi gently pulled him out and brushed the dust off his shirt. His big brown eyes looked up at her with that curious expression he always wore, like the whole world was a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Even when he's gone, we follow the rules. Okay?" "Okay, Mama." She kissed his forehead and sent him back to the small room they shared, behind the kitchen. Their whole life fit in that space now. One bed they shared, a small desk where Luazi studied at night, and 3 boxes of everything else they owned. 2 years ago in Cape Town, Naledi had an office at the university. She taught mathematics to students who actually thought numbers were boring. Can you imagine? She made them see patterns in everything, showed them how the world spoke in equations if you just listened right. Then Thabo died. Her husband had worked at the mining company, just keeping records. Nothing dangerous. But he found something in those records. Numbers that didn't match. Money disappearing. Workers getting sick, and the company hiding reports. He told her about it one night, excited like he'd solved a big problem. "We have to report this, Naledi. People are dying." 3 days later, Thabo's car went off a cliff. Police called it an accident. But Naledi knew numbers, and the numbers didn't lie. The brake lines were cut. Her husband was murdered. She ran. Took Luazi and whatever money she had saved, and ran before they decided she knew too much, too. A friend helped them get to South Korea. False papers, new identity, just disappear, and stay alive. Now she cleaned floors. A PhD in mathematics, and she cleaned floors. Before you think this is just another sad story, wait. Just wait. Because sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be, even when it looks all wrong. If you want to see how a maid and her son changed everything for a powerful man, hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. The front door opened around 8 that evening. Naledi was preparing Mr. Yoon's dinner. Nothing fancy, just the way he liked it. Simple rice, grilled fish, and kimchi. He never asked for special meals or complicated dishes. Actually, he barely spoke to her at all. Yoon Si-woo walked into the kitchen and stopped. He always stopped, just for a second, when he saw her there. Like he forgot she existed and had to remember all over again. "Good evening, Mr. Yoon," Naledi said, bowing slightly like she'd learned. He nodded. That was their whole conversation most days. But tonight, his eyes moved past her to the corner where Luazi sat at the small kitchen stool, working on math problems Naledi had written out. "Your son," Si-woo said. It wasn't a question, but Naledi answered anyway. "Yes, sir. I apologize. He'll go to our room now. He's doing mathematics." "Yes, sir." Advanced calculus. Naledi's stomach tightened. She'd gotten sloppy. Let Luazi work out here because the light was better. Now her boss knew her 7-year-old was solving university-level problems. Smart children attracted attention. Attention got you killed. "He likes numbers," she said carefully. Si-woo moved closer and looked at Luazi's paper. Her son kept writing, completely focused, not even noticing the tall man standing over him. "Where does he go to school?" "I teach him at home, sir." "You teach him this?" "Yes." Si-woo stared at her for a long moment. His face never showed much, always calm, always controlled. People probably thought that made him cold. Naledi thought it made him tired, like showing feelings was just too much work. "What did you do before?" he asked. "Before you came here." Every lie has to stay close to the truth, or you'll forget it. "I was a teacher, sir." "In South Africa?" "Yes, sir." He looked back at Lwazi, who had finally noticed them watching, and sat very still, eyes wide. "It's fine," Siwoo said, and walked out of the kitchen. Naledi let out a breath she'd been holding. Lwazi looked up at her. "Is he angry, Mama?" "No, baby. But maybe do your work in our room from now on, yes?" That night, Naledi couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the way Siwoo had looked at those math problems. Curious, interested. That was dangerous. They needed to stay invisible. At 3 in the morning, she got up to get water. The house was dark except for one light coming from Mr. Yoon's office. She tried to walk quietly, but the floorboard creaked. The office door opened. "Can't sleep?" Siwoo asked. He looked different without his work clothes, just a regular shirt and pants. Almost normal. Almost like he wasn't one of the most powerful men in Seoul. "I was just getting water, sir. I didn't mean to disturb you." "You didn't." He leaned against the doorframe. "I don't sleep well anyway." They stood there in the dark hallway, 2 people awake when the world was sleeping. "Your son is special," Siwoo said. "He's just a boy. A boy solving problems most adults can't do." Naledi chose her words carefully. "Smart children become targets, Mr. Yoon. I prefer him to be safe than special." Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe. "You're protecting him." "Always." He nodded slowly. "Get your water." "Good night, Mrs. Molefe." It was the first time he'd used her name. Over the next few weeks, something strange started happening. Siwoo began leaving papers on the kitchen counter. Business problems, logistics equations, complicated schedules that needed organizing. He never asked Naledi to solve them, just left them there. The first time, she ignored it. The second time, she walked past. The third time, Lwazi picked one up. "Mama, this is wrong. Look, if he changes this number here and moves this here, it works better." Naledi looked at the paper. Her son was right. The shipping schedule Siwoo was working with had inefficiencies all over it. She could fix it in 10 minutes. She took the paper to her room, made notes in pencil on a separate sheet, and left it next to the original. The next morning, the papers were gone. That evening, Siwoo came home with a book. He set it on the kitchen counter. "For Lwazi," he said. "Advanced geometry. I thought he might like it." Naledi stared at the book. "Mr. Yoon, you don't have to." "I know." He walked away before she could say more. Lwazi loved the book. He carried it everywhere, reading about shapes and angles and theorems. One night, he looked up at Naledi with shining eyes. "Mr. Yoon must be very smart to know I'd like this." "Yes, baby, he's very observant." "Do you think he's lonely, Mama? He's always here by himself." Out of the mouths of children, right? Her 7-year-old saw what most people missed. Yoon Siwoo had money, power, a beautiful home, and absolutely nobody to share it with. "Maybe he is," Naledi admitted. "We should make him less lonely." "Lwazi, that's not our job." "Why not? He gave me a book. We should give him something back." The next day, Lwazi drew a picture. He wasn't very good at art, but he tried hard. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small. They were standing together. At the top, he wrote in careful letters, "Thank you for the book, Mr. Yoon." He left it on the kitchen counter. Naledi found it that evening, folded carefully and tucked into Siwoo's jacket pocket. He'd kept it. Something was shifting in this house. Naledi felt it like a change in the air before rain comes. She just didn't know if that was good or bad yet. Things got complicated on a Tuesday. Si-woo came home with 4 other men, all dressed sharp, all wearing expressions that said they were important, and knew it. Business meeting. "I'll need the sitting room," Si-woo told Naledi. "Tea for 5. "Yes, sir." She prepared everything perfectly and brought it in on a tray. The men were speaking in low voices, switching between Korean and English. Naledi understood both, but pretended she didn't. That was another rule. Know everything. Show nothing. She was pouring tea when one of the men, older with silver hair, looked at her with eyes that made her skin crawl. "Pretty help you have, Yoon. Where'd you find this one?" Si-woo's voice went cold. "She works for me. That's all you need to know." The man laughed, but stopped asking questions. Naledi finished pouring and left, quickly. But as she reached the door, she heard Luwazi. "Mama?" No, her son stood in the doorway, holding his geometry book, completely unaware he'd just walked into a room full of dangerous men. "Luwazi, go back," Naledi said firmly. But the silver-haired man was already smiling. "Well, who's this little scholar?" Luwazi, polite like Naledi taught him, bowed slightly. "Good evening, sir." "Smart kid, is he yours?" "Yes," Naledi said, moving to take Luwazi's hand. "I apologize for the interruption." "Wait," another man said, pointing at the book. "That's advanced geometry. Can he even read that?" Luwazi looked up at Naledi, asking permission with his eyes. She wanted to say no, wanted to grab him and run. But that would make them more curious. She nodded slightly. "I like the patterns," Luwazi said simply. "Numbers make sense. They don't lie." The room went quiet. The men looked at this 7-year-old boy like they were seeing something unusual. Si-woo stood up. "Mrs. Molefe, please take Luwazi to the kitchen. Gentlemen, shall we continue?" His voice was pleasant but firm. The meeting was more important than a child. Naledi practically pulled Luwazi out of there. Her hands were shaking. "Did I do something wrong, Mama?" Luwazi whispered. "No, baby. But we need to stay out of sight when Mr. Yoon has guests. It's very important." That night, after the men left, Si-woo came to the kitchen. Naledi was cleaning up, and Luwazi was already asleep in their room. "I'm very sorry about earlier, sir," she started. He held up a hand. "One of those men, the older one with silver hair, his name is Kong. If you ever see him near this house when I'm not here, take Luwazi and lock yourselves in your room. Call me immediately." Naledi's blood went cold. "Is he dangerous?" "Yes." "Just that." "Yes." No explanation, no softening it. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Si-woo looked at her directly. "Because Luwazi is special, and special things attract the wrong attention. I know you're trying to keep him safe. I'm trying to help you do that. Why would you help us?" He was quiet for a moment. "I'm not sure yet, but I am." He left her standing there, heart pounding, wondering what they'd just walked into. Want to know what happens when those dangerous men come back? When everything Naledi built to keep her son safe starts falling apart? Keep watching, and don't forget to subscribe because this story is just getting started. The next few weeks were calm, too calm. Naledi kept waiting for something bad to happen, but life just continued. She cleaned, cooked, and taught Luwazi at night. Si-woo came and went, sometimes nodding at them, sometimes stopping to see what Luwazi was reading. It was almost normal. Then one night, Naledi woke up to voices. She checked the clock, 3:30 in the morning. Someone was in the house. She crept to the door and listened. Men talking. Angry. Luwazi stirred. "Mama." "Sure, baby, stay quiet." She heard Si-woo's voice, calm and level. "You need to leave. Now." "We're not done discussing this." That was Kong, the silver-haired man. Yes, we are. Get out of my house. You're making a mistake, Yoon. Probably. But it's my mistake to make. Footsteps. The front door opening and closing. Silence. Naledi waited 5 full minutes before opening her door just a crack. Siwoo stood in the hallway, running his hands through his hair. He looked tired. More than tired. Exhausted. He must have sensed her watching because he turned. "You heard," he said. "Are you all right, sir?" "That's what you ask? If I'm all right?" "Yes." He almost smiled. Almost. Kang wanted me to partner with him on a business deal. I said no. He doesn't like that word. "Will there be trouble?" "Probably." That word again. Honest. Siwoo never lied to make things sound better. "Should we leave?" Naledi asked quietly. "Luazi and me, if we're making things complicated for you." "No." His voice was firm. "You're not the complication. You're—" He stopped, seemed to be looking for words. "You're the first thing in this house that feels right. Stay." Before Naledi could respond, he walked to his room and closed the door. She stood in the dark hallway, her heart doing something strange in her chest, something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Since Thabo died, she'd locked that part of herself away. Feelings were dangerous. Feelings made you weak. But Yoon Siwoo had just asked them to stay. Not ordered. Asked. The next morning, everything changed again. Naledi was making breakfast when Siwoo came into the kitchen, dressed more formally than usual. Behind him was a woman in business clothes carrying a tablet. "Mrs. Molefe," Siwoo said. "This is Miss Park. She handles HR for my company. I have a proposition for you." Naledi's hands went still. "Sir?" "I need a consultant, someone who understands complex logistics and scheduling, someone with advanced mathematics training." "You have people for that, surely." "I have people who went to expensive schools and still can't solve problems as efficiently as you do." He pulled out the papers she'd marked up weeks ago. "You fix this in minutes. My team spent 3 days on it and got it wrong. Mr. Yoon, I'm not qualified for. You have a PhD in mathematics from the University of Cape Town. You published 2 papers on optimization theory. You taught for 4 years before." He paused carefully. "Before you came here. You're overqualified if anything." The room tilted. He knew. He'd investigated her, found out everything. Naledi's first instinct was to grab Luazi and run. But Siwoo's expression wasn't threatening. It was patient. "I also know your husband died in suspicious circumstances," he continued quietly. "I know you're hiding. I know Luazi can't go to regular school because records are dangerous. And I know you're working as my maid because invisible people are safe people." Miss Park looked uncomfortable, like she wasn't supposed to be hearing this. Siwoo kept talking. "I'm offering you a job using your actual skills. Better pay. Better hours. And Luazi can stay here with tutors I trust, people who won't ask questions or keep records. You'll have your own apartment in the building, not a room behind the kitchen. You can stop being invisible." "Why?" Naledi asked. Her voice came out whisper soft. "Why would you do this?" "Because wasting your brain on cleaning my floors is stupid. And I don't like stupid things." It was so blunt, so completely honest, that Naledi almost laughed. No pretty speech about helping people or being kind. Just, it's stupid to waste resources. "What if I say no?" she asked. "Then nothing changes. You keep your job as you have it. I don't force people, Mrs. Molefe." Luazi appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Mama? What's happening?" Siwoo looked at her son, then back at her. "Think about it. You don't have to decide now." He left with Miss Park, leaving Naledi standing in the kitchen with her mind spinning. Luazi tugged her sleeve. "Mama, you look scared." "I'm not scared, baby." "You do the thing with your hands. the twisting. You only do that when you're scared. She looked down. He was right. She was wringing her hands without realizing it. Mr. Yoon offered Mama a different job, a better one. That's good, right? Was it? Better pay meant stability, meant maybe one day they could stop hiding. But it also meant getting closer to Siwoo's world, and his world had men like Kong in it. I don't know yet, baby. That afternoon, while Wazi napped, Naledi did something she hadn't done in months. She prayed. Not in a church or formally, just sat quietly and talked to God, like he was sitting right there. I don't know what to do, Lord. I want to keep Lwazi safe, but I also want to stop being scared all the time. Is this an opportunity from you? Or is it a test? I need wisdom. Please. No thundering voice answered. But when she opened her eyes, she felt calmer, clearer. That evening, she found Siwoo in his office. I have 3 conditions, she said. He looked up, interested. Go on. 1. Lwazi's identity stays completely protected. No records, no paper trails, nothing. Agreed. 2. I won't do anything illegal. I don't care how good the pay is. My consulting firm is completely legitimate. You'll be working on supply chain optimization, scheduling, and efficiency models. All legal. 3. If I ever want to leave, for any reason we can go. No strings, no obligations. This one he thought about longer. That's hard for me, he admitted. I don't like losing valuable people. That's my condition. All right. Agreed. Naledi took a breath. Then I accept. Siwoo stood and extended his hand. She shook it. His grip was firm. Warm. Welcome to the team, Dr. Molefe. It was the first time anyone had called her doctor in 2 years. She'd forgotten how good it felt to be seen as more than just hands that cleaned. The move to the new apartment took 1 day, because they barely owned anything. Miss Park helped, cheerful and efficient. The apartment was small but bright, with 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, and windows that showed the city. Lwazi ran from room to room, amazed. Mama, I have my own room, my own bed. He'd never had that. Even before they ran, they'd lived in a tiny flat where he slept on the couch. That night, Naledi tucked him into his new bed, and he looked up at her with serious eyes. Mr. Yoon is a good man, isn't he, Mama? I think he's trying to be, she said honestly. He has sad eyes, though, like he's missing something. Maybe he is, baby. What do people miss when they have everything? Naledi kissed his forehead. Connection, Lwazi. You can have all the things in the world and still be lonely. Then we should be as friends. Friends make loneliness go away. If only it were that simple. But maybe, just maybe, her son was onto something. The consulting job was harder than Naledi expected, not because the work was difficult, but because Siwoo's business world was complicated in ways she hadn't imagined. Her first week, she sat in meetings with men in expensive watches who talked about expansion and market domination like they were playing a game. Siwoo ran the meetings calm and controlled, making decisions fast, shutting down arguments with just a look. Naledi mostly listened and took notes. But during the 3rd meeting, when they were discussing shipping routes, she noticed something. Excuse me, she said quietly. Everyone turned. They still weren't used to her being there. The route through Busan you're considering. It saves 2 days on paper. But you're not accounting for the port delays during the monsoon season. We're heading into that now. You'll actually lose 4 days and pay premium fees for rushed processing. The logistics manager frowned at his papers. I didn't calculate weather, patterns. You should. Route it through Incheon instead and use the smaller port. Adds 1 day normally, but during monsoon season, you'll still come out 3 days ahead. Siwoo leaned back in his chair. Check her numbers. They did. She was right. After the meeting, Siwoo stopped her in the hallway. You just saved the company 200 million won. I just did mathematics, Mr. Yoon. Keep doing mathematics then? He almost smiled. Almost. Word spread fast. The new consultant, the quiet woman from South Africa, she knew her stuff. People started bringing Naledi their problems. She solved them. It felt good, using her brain again, being valued for what she could do instead of invisible. But it also meant spending more time around Siwoo, and that was becoming complicated. He wasn't like other powerful men she'd met. He didn't yell or throw things when stressed. Didn't demand people agree with him. He listened, really listened, then made choices. And if he was wrong, he admitted it and changed course. You're staring, he said one evening. They were alone in the office, going over quarterly reports. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Naledi blinked. Sorry, I was thinking. About? You're different than I expected. Different how? She chose words carefully. The men you do business with, they respect you, but they're also afraid of you. I'm trying to understand why. Siwoo set down his pen and looked at her directly. You want the truth? Always. I've done things I'm not proud of. Built this company using methods that weren't always clean. Made deals with people who hurt others. I told myself it was business, just survival in a competitive world. But that's an excuse. He paused. The fear you see, I earned it. Not always in good ways. Most people would have sugar-coated that. Made excuses. He just laid it out plain. Why are you telling me this? Naledi asked. Because you asked. And because you should know who you're working for. Are you trying to scare me away? No. I'm trying to be honest. You value that, I think. He was right. She did. Lies had killed her husband. Honesty, even ugly honesty, she could respect. I appreciate you telling me, she said. They went back to work, but something had shifted between them. A new understanding, fragile and strange. Luwazi was thriving with the tutors Siwoo arranged. Older teachers, retired, who taught for love of it, not for records or reports. They discovered her son wasn't just good at math. He had what they called pattern recognition, could see connections between things that seemed unrelated. One of the tutors, an elderly woman named Mrs. Kim, pulled Naledi aside one day. Your son is extraordinary. His brain works differently, sees the world in layers most people miss. Is that bad? Naledi asked, worried. Bad? No, it's beautiful. But you need to protect him. Gifts like his, people will want to use them. I know. That's why we're careful. Mrs. Kim patted her hand. Mr. Yoon chose well with us. We're old. We don't gossip. And we love teaching special children. Luwazi is safe with us. That fear, always sitting in Naledi's chest, eased just a little. Things were stable for almost 2 months. Then the Nakamura deal started. Siwoo called a major meeting, brought in consultants from Japan, set up negotiations for a massive merger. His company would combine operations with the Nakamura Group, expanding into international markets. Naledi reviewed the contracts. Everything looked solid. The numbers worked. The timeline made sense. It was a good deal. But something bothered her. She couldn't pinpoint what. You look concerned, Siwoo said. They were in his office late again. That was becoming normal, the two of them working after everyone left. I'm not sure, Naledi admitted. The math is right, but something feels off. Trust your instinct. What specifically? The Nakamura representatives, they agreed to your terms too easily. Men like that always negotiate harder. Siwoo considered this. Maybe they need this deal more than they're letting on. Maybe. Or maybe they want something else. Like what? I don't know yet. He trusted her enough to delay signing and pushed the meeting back a week. His team was frustrated, but he held firm. Dr. Molefe has concerns. We address them first. That trust, it meant something. Made Naledi work harder to figure out what was wrong. She went through every page of the contract again. Checked background on the Nakamura group. Everything seemed legitimate. Then Luazi solved it. It was a Saturday. Si Woo had invited them to his house for dinner, something he'd started doing on weekends. Naledi told herself it was just kindness, just him being friendly. She ignored how her heart beat faster when he smiled at something Luazi said. They were eating when Luazi asked, "Mr. Yoon, what's that picture on your wall?" He pointed to a frame in the hallway, visible from the dining room. "That's a very old seal," Siwoo explained. "It belonged to my mentor, the man who taught me business. He died 10 years ago." "What kind of seal?" "A chop, we call it, for signing important documents. See the butterfly design? That was his symbol." Luazi got up to look closer. Naledi started to call him back, but Siwoo waved her off. "Let him look." Her son studied the seal with that intense focus he got. "It has 7 lines on each wing. That's unusual. Most butterflies have 6. "He had it made custom," Siwoo said. 7 is a lucky number in Korean culture. They finished dinner. Luazi played with a puzzle. The adults talked about nothing important, just an easy conversation. It was nice, dangerously nice. Then Siwoo mentioned the Nakamura meeting was scheduled for Tuesday. "I couldn't find anything wrong," Naledi admitted. "Maybe I'm being paranoid. Or maybe you see something everyone else missed. Either way, I value your input." That's when it happened. Siwoo's head of security brought in the Nakamura contract for final review, set it on the table with all the official seals and signatures ready. Luazi glanced at it, then looked again, then got up and walked over, staring at the Nakamura seal stamped on the papers. "Luazi, don't bother Mr. Yoon's work," Naledi said, but her son's face had gone serious. "Mama, the butterfly is wrong." "What do you mean, baby?" "Look." He pointed at the Nakamura seal, then back at the frame in the hallway. Mr. Yoon's teacher had 7 lines. This one only has 6. The room went very still. Siwoo stood up slowly and looked at the seal on the contract. His face didn't change, but Naledi saw his jaw tighten. "You're sure?" he asked Luazi. 7 versus 6? "Yes, sir. I counted 3 times. Siwoo pulled out his phone and made a call. "Get me everything on the Nakamura delegation. Now. I want backgrounds, photos, and verification of identities. Everything." He hung up and looked at Naledi. His eyes were different, sharp and dangerous. "If that seal is wrong," he said quietly, "then those aren't Nakamura representatives." Naledi's stomach dropped. "Who are they?" "People who want me dead." If you think your heart is racing now, just wait. The next part is going to blow your mind. Make sure you're subscribed, because you do not want to miss what happens when Siwoo figures out who's really behind this deal. The security team worked through the night. Naledi took Luazi home but couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her son, her brilliant boy, who might have just saved Siwoo's life by noticing butterfly wings. At 6 in the morning, her phone rang. "Siwoo. Can you come to the office? Bring Luazi. I need him to verify something." They arrived to find Siwoo's office full of people, computer screens everywhere, photos spread across the table. Luazi held Naledi's hand tightly. "Are we in trouble, Mama?" "No, baby. You did something. Very good." Siwoo saw them and came over. He knelt down to Luazi's level. "You might have saved a lot of people yesterday," he said seriously. "I need you to look at some pictures and tell me if you recognize anyone. Can you do that?" Luazi nodded. Siwoo showed him photos of the Nakamura delegation. "These are the men who came to meet with me. Do any of them look familiar? Maybe from when you've been at my house." Luazi studied each picture carefully. Then he pointed. This one. He was at your house before. The night Mama told me to stay in our room because you had guests. He has a mark on his hand, see? Right there. Same mark. The security chief leaned in. That's Kong's lieutenant. We couldn't confirm it was him because he had surgery to change his face. But the birthmark, that doesn't change. Siwoo stood up, his expression ice cold. So Kong sent imposters pretending to be Nakamura. The plan was what? Kill me during the signing? Probably. The contract has a clause that, as a transfers operational control immediately upon your signature. They'd take over the company, then eliminate you. Make it look like an accident. Naledi felt sick. They'd been this close to signing. If Luazi hadn't noticed those butterfly wings. Siwoo touched her elbow gently. Step outside with me. They went into the hallway. Luazi stayed with the security team, who were showing him pictures of butterflies now to keep him occupied. Your son just saved my life, Siwoo said. He noticed a pattern. That's what he does. It's more than that. He's extraordinary. Siwoo ran a hand through his hair. Which means I just put a target on his back. What do you mean? Kong's people were in that room when Luazi walked in, remember? They saw how smart he is. Now they know he's the reason their plan failed. He looked at her with something like pain in his eyes. I'm sorry, Naledi. I brought danger to you. It was the first time he'd used her first name. She barely noticed because fear was climbing up her throat. What do we do? She whispered. We protect him. Both of you. I have a safe house, completely secure. You'll stay there until I handle this situation. Handle it how? His expression went hard. However necessary. No. Naledi grabbed his arm. Don't do something that makes you into what they are. Please. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. They tried to kill me, and now they're threatening your son. You want me to just let that go? I want you to be smart about it. You're better than them, Siwoo. Don't prove me wrong. Using his first name just slipped out, but it made him pause, softened something in his face. What do you suggest, then? He asked. You have evidence now, real evidence. Use it. Go to the authorities, expose them. Let the law handle it. The law doesn't always work against men like Kang. Then make it work. You have resources, connections. Fight them the right way. He studied her for a long moment. You still believe people can be good, after everything you've been through. I believe you can be good. I've seen it. Something passed between them in that quiet hallway. Something neither of them was ready to name yet. All right, Siwoo said finally. We do it your way. But you and Luazi still go to the safe house until this is over. That's not negotiable. She nodded. Okay. The safe house was actually a penthouse apartment in a building Siwoo owned. Top floor, private elevator, security cameras everywhere. This is your idea of a safe house? Naledi asked, looking around at the expensive furniture. I don't do anything halfway, Siwoo said. My head of security lives 2 floors down. There are guards in the lobby. No one gets up here without clearance. Luazi was already exploring, amazed by the space. Siwoo's phone rang constantly. He answered in short, clipped sentences, setting things in motion. That evening, he sat down with Naledi and explained the plan. He'd contacted both Korean authorities and international agencies, provided evidence of Kang's organization, the fake identities, the attempted fraud. They were building a case. How long? Naledi asked. Could be weeks, maybe a month. We just stay here that whole time? Is that a problem? Luazi needs routine. He needs his tutors. I'll bring them here. Siwoo, you can't just upend your whole life for us. He looked at her steadily. Watch me. The first week was strange. Siwoo came every evening after work. At first, Naledi thought he was just checking security, but he'd stay. Eat dinner with them. Help Luazi with puzzles. Just be there. Don't you have other places to be? She asked one night. They were alone in the kitchen. Luwazi had fallen asleep on the couch. Probably, Siwoo admitted. But I'd rather be here. Why? You really have to ask? Her heart did that jumping thing again. Siwoo, I know, it's complicated. You work for me. You're hiding from people who want to hurt you. I come with my own set of dangerous complications. He moved closer. But being around you and Luwazi, it's the first time in years I've felt like a person instead of just a businessman. We're not your redemption project, Naledi said softly. I know that too. You're real. You call me out when I'm wrong. You make me think about who I want to be instead of who I've been. And Luwazi, he looks at me like I could be someone good. You are someone good. I'm trying to be. That's different. They stood close in the quiet kitchen. Naledi knew she should step back, keep distance, stay professional. But she didn't want to. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've had in a while. We should be sensible. Absolutely should. Neither of them moved away. Then Luwazi called out from the couch, half asleep. Mama? The moment broke. Naledi went to her son, and Siwoo left quietly. But something had started. Something neither of them could ignore anymore. The investigation into Kang moved forward. Siwoo kept Naledi updated on everything. Authorities had raided multiple locations, frozen accounts, arrested key members of the organization. But Kang himself had disappeared. That's bad, isn't it? Naledi asked. It means he knows we're coming. He's gone to ground. Will he give up? Siwoo's expression was grim. Men like Kang don't give up. They get desperate. And desperate is dangerous. He increased security, added more guards, barely slept. Naledi watched him run himself into exhaustion and finally confronted him. You're going to collapse if you keep this pace. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're surviving on coffee and stubbornness. He almost smiled. That's been my survival strategy for years. Well, it's a terrible strategy. Sit down, eat something real, sleep for more than 3 hours. Are you ordering me around, Dr. Molefe? Yes, someone has to. This time he did smile. Tired, but real. All right, but only because you're very bossy when you want to be. She made him proper food, not the takeout he'd been living on. Watched him eat. Thank you, he said quietly. For food? For caring? People don't usually. Don't usually what? He shrugged. Care about me as a person. They care about what I can do for them, what I'm worth. But you yell at me for not sleeping. That's different. Naledi's heart hurt for him. This powerful man who had everything except people who saw him. You're worth caring about, Siwoo. As a person, not a business asset. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Vulnerable and hopeful and scared all at once. Naledi, he started. Luwazi walked in. Mama, I had a bad dream. Perfect timing, as always. She went to comfort her son, and when she looked back, Siwoo was gone. That night, lying in bed, Naledi had to face the truth. She was falling for Yoon Siwoo, maybe had been since the first time he'd looked at Luwazi's math homework with interest instead of dismissal. Since he'd offered her a job using her real skills. Since he'd knelt down to her son's level and spoken to him with respect. But falling for him was complicated. He lived in a dangerous world. She was still hiding from her past, and Luwazi had to come first, always. Still, her heart didn't care about logical arguments. It just kept reaching toward this man who was trying so hard to be better than he'd been. The break in the case came 2 weeks later. One of Kang's associates, facing serious charges, made a deal. Gave up locations, bank accounts, everything, including Kang's hideout. The authorities moved in fast, arrested him, and what was left of his organization. It was over. Siwoo came to the penthouse that evening looking lighter than Naledi had ever seen him. "It's done," he said. "Kang's in custody. The whole network is dismantled. You're safe." Luazi cheered. "Does this mean we can go home?" "You can go anywhere you want," Siwoo said. But he was looking at Naledi when he said it. That night, after Luazi went to bed, they sat together on the balcony. The city stretched out below them, lights everywhere. "What happens now?" Naledi asked. "That depends on what you want." "What I want is complicated. Most good things are." She took a breath. "I want Luazi to be safe. I want to use my skills doing work that matters. I want... what else? I want to see where this goes. You and me. But I'm scared." "Me too," Siwoo admitted. "I'm terrible at relationships. I work too much. I have a past that's messy. And I still don't know how to be the kind of man you and Luazi deserve. Maybe you don't have to be perfect. Maybe you just have to be present." He reached over and took her hand, just held it, gentle and careful. "I can do present," he said. They sat like that, hands linked, looking at the city, not rushing into anything, just being. Inside, Luazi slept peacefully, safe and loved. Outside, the world kept turning, and between them, something new was growing, something real, something worth protecting. The next few months were the happiest Naledi could remember since Thabo died. She and Luazi moved back to their apartment in Siwoo's building. She returned to her consulting work. Life found a rhythm, but the rhythm now included Siwoo in ways that felt natural and right. He started joining them for breakfast before work. Luazi would chatter about whatever book he was reading, and Siwoo would listen like it was the most important thing he'd heard all day. "Did you know," Luazi said one morning, "that butterfly wings have tiny scales that reflect light? That's why they're so colorful. It's not paint, it's physics." "I didn't know that," Siwoo said seriously. "That's fascinating." "You saved your own life by noticing butterfly wings," Luazi continued. "So maybe butterflies are lucky for you." Naledi and Siwoo exchanged looks across the table. Her son had no idea how right he was. At work, Naledi had become essential to the company. Siwoo's team brought her their hardest problems. She solved them. The business grew. But more than that, she watched Siwoo change how he operated. He cut ties with questionable partners, refused deals that smelled wrong, even if they were profitable, started building the kind of company that didn't require looking over your shoulder. "You're going straight," one of his old associates said during a meeting. "Going soft." "No," Siwoo replied calmly. "I'm going sustainable. There's a difference." Naledi smiled from her seat at the table. There's a difference. He was learning. One evening, about 4 months after the Kong situation ended, Siwoo asked Naledi to dinner, just the two of them. "What about Luazi?" she asked. "Mrs. Kim offered to watch him. She's teaching him to make Korean dumplings." "You planned this." "I did. Is that okay?" Her heart fluttered. "Yes, it's okay." The restaurant was small and quiet, the kind of place locals knew, but tourists didn't find. They sat across from each other, and for a moment neither spoke. "I'm nervous," Siwoo admitted. "You? Nervous? You negotiate million-dollar deals without blinking." "Those are easy. This matters." Naledi reached across the table and took his hand. "It matters to me, too." They talked through dinner about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up, about his mentor who'd taught him business, about the loneliness of building an empire with no one to share it with. She told him about Thabo, about the pain of losing him, about the fear of running with a small child to a country where she didn't speak the language. "You're the bravest person I know," Siwoo said. "I'm not brave. I was just trying to keep my son alive." "That's what makes it brave. You didn't have a choice, but you kept going anyway." After dinner, They walked through a park. Spring was starting, trees budding with new leaves. "Naledi," Siwoo said, stopping on the path. "I need to tell you something." Her stomach tightened. "Okay. I'm falling in love with you. Probably already have fallen. And I know it's complicated, and maybe too soon. And you might not feel the same way. But I needed you to know." She looked up at this man, this powerful, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man, and felt her own truth rising up. "It's not too soon," she said softly. "And I do feel the same way. I fought it for a long time because falling for you seemed impossible and scary and inevitable. Like numbers adding up to the only answer that makes sense." He smiled, really smiled, bright and unguarded. Then he cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. Yes, he did. Soft and careful, like she was precious, like he'd been waiting forever for this moment. When they pulled apart, Naledi was smiling too. "Well," she said, "that was worth waiting for. We should probably talk about what this means," Siwoo said. "I don't want to rush you or pressure you or—" "Siwoo." "Yes? Stop overthinking. We figure it out as we go. Together. Together. I like that word." They walked back hand in hand, and Naledi felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope for a future that wasn't just survival. Telling Luazi was easier than expected. Kids notice everything anyway. "So Mr. Yoon is your boyfriend now?" he asked Naledi the next morning. She blinked. "How did you? You smiled differently. And he smiles differently. And you hold hands now." Siwoo, who was there for breakfast as usual, looked amused. "Nothing gets past you, does it?" "Nope," Luazi said cheerfully. "Are you going to be my dad?" The question hung in the air. Naledi started to say something about taking things slow, not rushing, but Siwoo spoke first. "Would you want me to be?" he asked Luazi seriously. Luazi thought about it with his usual careful consideration. "My first dad died. I don't remember him much, but Mama says he was good and smart and brave." "He was all those things," Naledi said softly. "You don't have to replace him," Luazi continued, looking at Siwoo. "But you could be my second dad, if you want. I think you'd be good at it." Siwoo's eyes got shiny. Naledi had never seen him close to tears before. "I'd be honored," he said, voice rough. "I'm not perfect, and I'll probably mess up sometimes. But I promise to always try my best." "That's all anybody can do," Luazi said wisely. Then he went back to his cereal like he hadn't just rearranged all their lives. Naledi met Siwoo's eyes across the table. He looked overwhelmed, happy and terrified. She mouthed, "You okay?" He nodded, mouthed back, "Best morning of my life." They settled into being a family slowly, carefully. Siwoo didn't move in or change everything at once. He just became part of their routine. Breakfast together, dinner several times a week, weekends at his house where Luazi could run around the big garden. He was surprisingly good with her son. Patient, when Luazi got obsessed with a topic and talked about it for hours. Encouraging when he struggled with something. Present in ways that mattered. "You're a natural at this," Naledi told him one evening. They were cleaning up after dinner while Luazi did homework. Domestic, normal, and perfect. "I'm terrified every day I'll do it wrong," Siwoo admitted. "That's how you know you care. Bad parents don't worry about messing up." He dried a dish thoughtfully. "My father wasn't around much. Work always came first. I promised myself if I ever had kids, I'd be different." "You are different. You show up, Siwoo. That's what matters." He kissed her temple. "We show up. You've been doing this alone for years. I'm just trying to catch up." About 6 months into their relationship, things got complicated in a new way. News broke about the mining company in South Africa. the one responsible for Thabo's death. International journalists had exposed everything. The corruption, the cover-ups, the workers who died because the company cut safety corners for profit. Criminal charges were being filed. Naledi watched the news with shaking hands. Justice. Finally justice for Thabo and all the others. They want me to testify, she told Siwoo. The prosecutors reached out. They found me somehow. Will you go? I don't know. Going back means being visible. What if there are still people who want to silence witnesses? Siwoo sat beside her. I can't make this choice for you, but I can tell you that you'll be protected. I'll make sure of it. And whatever you decide, we're with you. It would mean taking Lwazi back to South Africa. So we go to South Africa. We? You think I'm letting you do this alone? We're a team now, remember? Naledi leaned against him. It's scary, going back. Most important things are. But you're the bravest person I know, remember? She thought about Thabo, about the justice he deserved, about the other families who'd lost people. I'll do it, she decided. I'll testify. The trip to South Africa was planned carefully. Security, safe accommodations, everything thought through. But Naledi was still nervous the whole flight. Lwazi, however, was excited. I get to see where I was born and meet Gogo. Naledi's mother still lived in Cape Town. They'd talked on the phone, but hadn't seen each other in 2 years. Too dangerous before. But now, with the company's crimes exposed and Siwoo's resources protecting them, it was possible. Her mother cried when she saw them at the airport, held Naledi and Lwazi, and cried, my babies, you're home. Then she saw Siwoo standing back politely and stopped crying. Mama, this is Yoon Siwoo, Naledi said. I'm her partner, Siwoo said in careful English. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am. Naledi's mother, all 5 feet of her, looked him up and down. You're the Korean man my daughter told me about, the one who's been taking care of my grandson. Yes, ma'am. Good. Come here. She hugged him too, fierce and tight. Siwoo looked startled, but hugged back. You protect my girl, she said firmly. You protect them both. With my life, Siwoo promised. Then you're welcome in this family. Just like that, he was accepted. The days in Cape Town were emotional. Naledi visited Thabo's grave with Lwazi. She told her son stories about his first father, made sure he knew he'd been loved. I wish I remembered him, Lwazi said softly. You were so little when he died, but he loved you so much, and he'd be proud of who you're becoming. Do you think he'd like that Siwoo as my dad now, too? Naledi thought about Thabo, about his kind heart and generous spirit. Yes, baby. I think he'd be happy you have someone who loves you. Siwoo kept a respectful distance during these moments, never tried to insert himself or compete with Thabo's memory. Just supported, from the sidelines. Thank you, Naledi told him later, for understanding. He was your husband, Lwazi's father. He deserves to be remembered and honored. I'm not threatened by that. She loved him more for saying it. The testimony was hard. Naledi had to recount everything Thabo had told her, everything she'd seen in the records he'd shown her. Face the lawyers who tried to discredit her. But she held firm, told the truth clearly and completely. When it was over, the prosecutor thanked her. Your testimony was crucial. We couldn't have built this case without witnesses willing to come forward. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Siwoo's security team kept them back, but Naledi stopped. I want to say something, she told Siwoo. Are you sure? Yes. She turned to the cameras and spoke clearly. My husband Thabo Molefe died because he tried to do the right thing. He tried to protect workers who were being hurt by corporate greed. They killed him for it. Today I spoke his truth. Justice is finally happening. For him, for all the families who lost people, this is just the beginning. The story ran internationally. Naledi became the face of the case. It was scary being visible again, but also freeing. No more hiding. They stayed in South Africa for 2 weeks. Dwazi got to know his grandmother. Siwu met Naledi's extended family and navigated the cultural differences with surprising grace. One evening, at a family dinner, Naledi's uncle asked Siwu, "What are your intentions with my niece?" The room went quiet. Siwu didn't hesitate. "I intend to love her for the rest of my life, if she'll let me. Support her dreams. Be the best father I can to Lwazi. Build a life together that's honest and good." The uncle grunted. "Good answer." Later, alone in their hotel room, Naledi teased him. "Very smooth with my uncle. I meant every word. I know you did. That's why it worked." He pulled her close. "Naledi, I want to ask you something. Not now, but someday. Soon, when the time is right." Her heart knew what he meant. Someday, soon sounds good. They flew back to Seoul as a unit, a family in all the ways that mattered. The trial concluded 3 months later. The mining company executives were found guilty, prison sentences handed down. Real accountability. Naledi watched the verdict from Seoul and cried. Relief, grief, justice, all mixed together. Siwu held her. Lwazi hugged her. They sat together until the tears stopped. "It's over," she whispered. "Really over." "The hard part is," Siwu agreed. "Now comes the good part." He was right. With the trial done and Kong's organization dismantled, they were finally, truly safe. Free to just live. Siwu restructured his company completely, exited all the gray areas, focused on legitimate business. It meant less profit, but he didn't care. "Money's useless if I can't sleep at night," he said. "I want to build something I'm proud of, something Lwazi can be proud of." Naledi watched him become the man he'd always had the potential to be. It was beautiful. 1 year after that first dinner, Siwu planned something special. He told Naledi they were going out to celebrate her birthday. "But my birthday's not for 2 months," she said. "Just come. Trust me." They drove to his house, the one where she'd worked as a maid years ago. So much had changed since then. The garden was decorated with lights, a small table set for 3. "3?" Naledi asked. "Lwazi needs to be here for this." Her son came running out, grinning. "Mama, look how pretty!" They sat down to dinner under the stars. Simple food, nothing fancy, just family. After they ate, Siwu stood up. He looked nervous. "I had a whole speech planned," he said. "Practiced it for weeks. But I'm just going to say this simply." He knelt down and pulled out a small box. Naledi's hands flew to her mouth. "Naledi Molefe, you walked into my life when I was lost. You and Lwazi showed me what matters. Family, honesty, love, being good instead of just being powerful." He opened the box. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, officially, legally, completely. Will you marry me?" Tears ran down her face, happy tears this time. "Yes," she said. "Yes, absolutely, yes." He slid the ring on her finger, and she pulled him up to kiss him. Lwazi cheered. "Does this mean we'll all have the same last name?" her son asked. "If you want," Siwu said. "We can all be Yuns, or all be Molefes, or keep our names, whatever feels right." Lwazi thought about it. "Can I be Lwazi Molefe Yun? Keep both?" "Perfect solution," Naledi said, laughing and crying. They stood together in the garden, the 3 of them, and Naledi thought about how far they'd come. From that terrifying day when Lwazi had said, "Daddy, don't sign that," to this moment, choosing each other completely. The wedding was small. Naledi's family flew in from South Africa. Siwu's few trusted friends attended. Mrs. Kim cried through the whole ceremony. Luwazi was the ring bearer and took his job very seriously. He walked down the aisle with the rings on a pillow, concentrating hard. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Luwazi said loudly, "I think it's great!" Everyone laughed. Siwoo and Naledi exchanged vows they wrote themselves. "I promise to love you in the simple ways," Siwoo said. "Showing up, listening, being present, making you laugh, supporting your dreams, being the man you and Luwazi deserve." Naledi's vows were just as simple. "I promise to be your partner in everything. To call you out when you're wrong and celebrate when you're right. To build a life with you that's honest and good and full of love." They kissed as husband and wife, and the small crowd cheered. At the reception, Luwazi gave a speech. He'd insisted on it. "My first dad died when I was little," he said into the microphone. "Someone had to lift him up to reach it. I don't remember him, but Mama says he was good. Now I have a second dad who's also good. Some kids have one dad. I have two. One in my heart and one here with me. I'm very lucky." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Life after the wedding was beautifully normal. They moved into Siwoo's house together. Luwazi got his own room and decorated it with books and puzzles. Naledi set up a home office where she could work. Siwoo cut back his hours at the company, promoted people he trusted to leadership positions, made space in his life for what mattered. Breakfast together every morning, dinner as a family every night, weekends exploring Seoul or just staying home. Simple routines that meant everything. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding, they were all in the living room, Luwazi doing homework, Siwoo reading reports, Naledi working on a consulting project. Luwazi looked up suddenly. "We're happy, aren't we?" Naledi smiled. "Yes, baby. We're very happy." "Good. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew." Siwoo set down his papers and went to sit by Luwazi. "You know what? We should celebrate being happy." "How?" "Ice cream run. Right now. All of us." "It's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday," Naledi pointed out. "Exactly. Breaking the rules for ice cream. Come on." They piled into the car and drove to Luwazi's favorite ice cream place, got cones, and walked around the neighborhood, laughing about nothing important. This was it, Naledi thought. This was the life she'd dreamed of when she was running, scared with a small child. Safety, love, family, joy. They'd fought hard to get here, through danger and fear and uncertainty, but they'd made it. That night, after Luwazi was asleep, Naledi and Siwoo sat in their room talking. "Do you ever think about having more kids?" Siwoo asked. "Sometimes. Do you want more?" "I think I'd like Luwazi to have a sibling, but only if you want that too." Naledi considered it. "Let's see what happens. No pressure, no plans. Just be open to it." "I like that approach." She curled against him. "We're really doing this, aren't we? The whole life together thing. We really are. Having second thoughts?" "Not even a little bit." He kissed her head. "Good, because you're stuck with me now." Best decision I ever made. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, safe and loved. The story could end here, with everyone happy and settled. But life keeps going, doesn't it? There's always more. 2 years later, Naledi gave birth to a daughter. They named her Thanduwe, which means beloved. She had Naledi's eyes and Siwoo's serious expression. Luwazi, now 11, was obsessed with his baby sister. He read to her constantly, showed her his books, and explained mathematics like she could understand. "She's going to be so smart," he declared. "I'm teaching her everything." Siwoo's company became a leader in ethical business practices. Other corporations studied how he'd transitioned from questionable methods to complete legitimacy, without losing competitiveness. He was invited to speak at conferences and share his story. He always gave the same message. Change is possible. It's hard and sometimes costly, but possible. And it's worth it. Naledi ran her own consulting firm now, helped companies optimize their operations, and taught mathematics online to students all over the world. She'd found a way to use her gifts that mattered. Sometimes, late at night, she'd think about how it all started. Her working as a maid, invisible and scared. Luazi notices butterfly wings, everything that came after. "What are you thinking about?" Siwoo would ask. "How one sentence changed everything. Daddy, don't sign that." "Best sentence anyone ever said to me. Luazi saved your life." "No. You both saved my life, just in different ways." 5 years after the wedding, they went back to South Africa for a visit. Showed Thandiwe where her mama came from. Visited Thabo's grave so Luazi could tell his first dad about his life. Naledi's mother was older now, but still fierce. She spoiled both grandchildren terribly. "You did good," she told Naledi. "Built a beautiful life from terrible circumstances. I got lucky. Luck nothing. You were brave. You fought for your son. You stayed strong. Don't diminish that." Maybe her mother was right. Maybe it was both. Bravery and luck and love all mixed together. The trial had led to reforms, new safety regulations for mining companies, better protections for workers. Thabo's death had meant something, changed things. "He'd be proud of you," Siwoo said at the grave. "I hope so." "He would be. You honored his sacrifice by fighting for justice, and you built a good life for Luazi. That's what any parent wants." They stood there together, paying respects to the man who'd come before, who'd made it possible for Luazi to exist. "Before you go, I need you to do something. If this story touched you, if you felt something real, hit that subscribe button. Right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real, that families come in all forms, that love can grow in the most unexpected places. Don't just watch, be part of this community. Subscribe, and let's share more stories that matter. Back in Seoul, life continued its beautiful routine. Luazi started high school, brilliant as ever, but also learning to be a regular kid. Made friends, played sports badly but enthusiastically, had crushes he told his mama about. Thandiwe grew into a curious, fearless little girl who kept everyone on their toes. And Siwoo and Naledi grew together, through challenges and joys and the ordinary moments that make up a life.